Yo, you already know what it is. It's your boy, YungContent, the unofficial sensei of the culture, mastering youthfulness and contentment. And on today's episode, we're going to be talking about, does God need money? Does the man upstairs or the woman upstairs need money? I think it's a great topic to talk about. I'm not going to be bashing the church. Definitely going to be taking some shots at pastors wearing $8,000 shoes. But from a man that has tithed thousands of dollars to his old church back in Florida, and who still reads the Ill Glory Bible, I think I know a thing or two. So stay tuned. Let's get right into it. To help me out on this topic, let me let Andreas Antonopoulos speak. Andreas, I love your stuff. You're very wise. You can really awaken the planet. You are awakening the planet as we speak, but awaken us right now. Does God need money? Go ahead, brother. Here's a clip. Let's do it.
Because what is money? InQ told us it's an illusion. It's imaginary. And the reason we don't grasp that is because it's so deeply embedded in our civilization. Money is one of the oldest technologies that humanity has. It precedes writing. How do we know that? The very first samples of writing we have are spreadsheets. They are tallies and ledgers of debts owed. And money pre-existed that writing. You might even speculate that money had an oral tradition until it needed to invent a written tradition, so writing was created for it. Money's a language. Money is a linguistic abstraction. Money is a language that we use to communicate value to each other. Money simply allows us to express value, and that value may have economic consequences, but it also has other consequences. We use money to express and create social bonds.
My background in church, in 2011, I found a church community in Jacksonville, Florida. It was a very hipster style of church called Celebration, and a lot of mission trips were going around. They weren't really as transparent of where their money was going. I know it was going towards building a new church that they were building on the south side of town. I say that because I gave a lot of tithes to that church, you know. And fast forward to when I moved to Charlotte, I realized that tithing to me would no longer served me anymore. Yes, it may say it in the Bible, but also the Bible is also missing hella books too. So it just didn't sit well in my spirit. I assumed that my tithing now would go into the community and highlight the community. So when I got to Charlotte, I was able to buy someone a ring on Christmas, because I said, I'm not going to tithe anymore. I'm going to give this man money to buy his wife a ring, because he just came to me and he asked me for help. And I saw that as a better play, a better situation that set well in my heart. And to see these pastors, John Gray, all these people rocking hella expensive stuff is a spit in the face. Rock that stuff outside on the street. Don't rock it on the stage, bro. Don't rock it on the stage when mad people are looking like, oh man, this man's wearing Gucci. Didn't Gucci just do some scandalous racist ass shit? Churches also don't even talk about racism. You know, some of them are very colorblind. They're not really for social justice. If you see a pastor rocking $10,000 shoes and he ain't even for social justice, but he's just telling you again, enlightened by Jesus Christ, it don't make no sense. Out here it's messed up, but in here it's inclusive. It should be inclusive out there. My opinions are my opinions, and I think the common man really thinks this way. Jesus wasn't about letting that stuff slide. He was about distribute decentralization. I believe Jesus was about decentralization and ownership. Decentralized economies, sacred economies. If your economy is sacred, then you hold those people accountable. You don't be like, oh yeah, keep going, man. Next week, what you got on next week? Oh, sweet, nice outfit. Give my life to God. You know, just, I feel like it doesn't work that way. People say, you know, he deserves that stuff. Somebody commented on Facebook when I shared that sneaker pastor kicks for Jesus article. Someone said, oh, he worked for that. You know, pastors can wear nice shit too. Guys rocking whatever, how much dollar sneakers? And that's okay. Yeah, of course he could rock nice things. I could rock nice things. But for a cultural context, especially being a cultural moving forward organization like a church, these pastors need to understand the culture and the orbit and the atmosphere around them. But some people say, hey, you know, let them just wear what they want to wear. It's nice that they can be able to afford that. They worked hard for it. Keep doing that. I believe people have free will and they could do whatever they want. You could go and be a part of that congregation and learn so much, but it's cap, full cap. Cap just means limited, okay? That's what it means. For the people who don't know what cap means, cap is limited. Welcome to the lingo. You have to understand the dynamics that this is a poor nation. I talk about money and the inflation rate of money. So you know that our economy is about to crash. Check my last video. And people need to get attuned with resources and how to use their gifts and how to barter and how to grow and how to do things of the natural world, not just of the spiritual world. They go hand in hand. The Bible's dope. I have the Ill Glory Bible. It's actually a Bible just with the Ill Glory sticker. But I have written a lot of notes in here. There's a lot of wisdom in this stuff. It's just missing some stuff. And I'm not going to throw it all the way out. I'm just going to start digging and digging and asking questions and finding solutions. And that's why I think this video will be powerful. Does God need money? No. People need money. God doesn't need anything. He needs our love. He needs for us to use our gifts to become our greatest version. Money is a system. Andreas Antonopoulos told you what money was. It's a language. The only real value is use value. Whatever we choose to use as a society becomes the new money, becomes the new value. Value is greater than money. Whatever people find value in is where their heart will be. So, let's redefine value. That stuff ain't value because someone made that stuff in a factory, slaving for it. That stuff's not value because the profit margin is going to probably an evil man, probably a racist man of Gucci. Value is using your money wisely to build a sacred economy, to build a decentralized sacred economy. And if churches want to get with that, they can get with that. But there are churches that are doing righteous things, and I decided to let them speak. Introduce yourself to the camera, tell me who you are.
So I'm Reverend Andreas Shipley. I'm the lead pastor of Mission Gathering Christian Church Disciples of Christ, Charlotte, North Carolina, which sounds like a lot. There's a lot in that title because we plant churches all over the country. So Charlotte is our second church plant, but we now have 5 other churches that we have all over the country. We are an open and affirming ministry that invites anybody to our table. So like, it doesn't matter what you believe, it doesn't matter gender, sexuality, race, anything. You're welcome at our table because we believe that it's Jesus Christ who made that table, and in the making of that table, he set it for the whole world. So far be it from us to limit anybody from coming to it.
When the topic comes, does God need money?
Yeah.
What do you feel about that?
So, I mean, as far as like, from a theological standpoint, God needs nothing, right? Because God is in everything and a part of everything. God is fully self-sustaining and beyond all of this. So does God need money? No. Do churches need money? Sure, right? But even within that, that's nuanced, because the reason for churches existing and having buildings and having all these things, and I am a person that collects a salary, a humble salary, but a salary nonetheless from the gifts of other people, and really that whole tradition comes from the idea that money would be collected in order to help others around us, and that money would be collective in order to secure a place where people could worship and connect to God together as a community. And it kind of has gotten a little out of whack with some people.
Why do you think that is?
I think that, there was a really big movement, especially here in the South, for a type of Christianity called the prosperity gospel. And, a lot of times people try to malign that with minority churches, but it's really lived out in the evangelical movement in white churches as well. Like, if you're wealthy, if you have large buildings, if your pastor looks like they have money, then you take pride in that. You're like, look at what God's doing. And that's how you're supposed to measure spirituality. The hard part is that's not anything modeled in Jesus, right? Like, Jesus was a homeless rabbi walking around Galilee with people just donating money so that they could continue the party from town to town. And, he even calls out the rich people that have all that stuff. He's like, the foxes have holes, and and even in that, he was calling out the Herod Antipas, whose name was the fox, right? That was an insult to him, and he's calling him out and saying, listen, you've got all these nice palaces, your family's built this amazing temple, but here I am, God in front of you, and I don't need any of it. I don't have anything. I don't own a house. I don't own any of that. And not that it's bad to own a home, and not that it's bad for churches to have buildings, but what's the purpose behind the things that you have, right? Is what Jesus wants to get to. If you have things that's just feeding your ego and feeding who you feel, become a part of who you feel like you are, then I think that's when you venture into the territory of it's maybe getting into being not something of God or for God.
I came from a church where it was in Jacksonville. It's called Celebration, and it was a big prosperity gospel. I gave a lot of money to this church. I gave $10,000 to this church, and when I came over here, I talked about in the video, I was now determined to give my tithes to the community, to the street,
right?
Buying people gifts, needed for Christmas, and I wonder where it gets lost in the pastor as far as they know that's in the Bible. But is it a community that not telling them? People are not I think worshiping this pastor? Or what's that?
I think there's a legit struggle for a lot of pastors. It takes a lot of work to get to being where most denominations will ordain you, or it takes a lot of work to getting your church to where stuff starts functioning. I mean, I worked here for a year without being paid once, because I believed in what we were doing. But I think a lot of pastors get into those times where it's not a lot of money, and so then they're like, well, when I've made it, I need to be making a ton of money. And I think, again, that's losing the focus, right? Because I don't want to just be like, oh, they're terrible people trying to scam people, because there are people that are that. But then there's some people that genuinely think oh, I deserve this. And I think that goes beyond just pastors, right? That's an epidemic in our community in general as Americans. Any wealth that we gain or anything that we get unto ourselves, we look at it as a personal thing, because America's true religion is the religion of the Jesus of self-reliance instead of the Jesus that wants to create community and change those communities. And so they get caught up in this web of other people telling them, you deserve this. I mean, it's a slippery slope. I'm lucky to have a denomination that says, hey, maybe you shouldn't accept this kind of gift or that kind of gift from your congregants, or maybe you shouldn't do this or that, because we want to keep our relationship pure. When you have people that come to your church and have money and they start giving you nice things and taking you to nice places, you start saying to yourself, oh, I need to be that rich-seeming type of person in order to attract rich-seeming type of people. And in some ways that's true. But again, what's your motivation? Yeah, if you start losing yourself in that and forgetting that, the person that you claim as God was a homeless pastor that never asked for anybody to give him stuff, but instead asked for people to transform themselves, right? like, if you start losing that, then it's easy to say, like, you know what, I need a $1,500 pair of sneakers or whatever ungodly amount that 30 cents worth of leather costs, right? Like we were talking about earlier, Charlotte has 300 something, no more than that, like 900 and something churches in it. And it's really odd to me that there's so much need, right? One of the big ones in town, I mean, they released a report where they said their one Sunday's offering is $545,000 or something on one Sunday. So if you like took one Sunday off, you could fund most of the homeless ministry in Charlotte. But again, I don't want to judge that and say like that's what they should be doing, because I don't know that I can say that, because I know what budgets are like and what it's like to try and grow things. But I think that losing sight of who your community is and what your community is hard. Like when we opened up here,
I know you guys are doing some good things.
Yeah.
I'd love for you to highlight that.
Yeah, so when we opened up here, we came into this building, right, and there was a giant hole in the middle of the floor where somebody thrown a Molotov cocktail through the window, and it burned up all the really old Methodist furniture that was here. That was beautiful. But we didn't want to just buy a building, because so many churches are focused on you have to have a building or you don't have to have a building. Like there's this argument that's happening, especially in the evangelical world right now, and even in the mainline church world, of like buildings versus not buildings. And we said, you know what, we're going to get a building, but we don't want our building to sit empty ever, right? If we're doing that, then we're misusing something that God's blessed us with as a resource. So what we did is, instead of having Sunday schools classes, right, we had small groups and we go in and out of having those during the week, but we just do Sunday morning gatherings. So there's no Sunday school, there's like time for the kids and stuff, but our Sunday school rooms, which would have sat empty all week long, right, and just been there for Sunday school, we've filled with nonprofits to use as offices. Because that's one of the things that's really lacking here in Charlotte, is the ability for a nonprofit entity to have an office where they can grow and be professional and have all the things that they need, and have a place where they can have big meetings like the sanctuary, have a place where they can eat like our kitchen and fellowship hall. And so we've been able to invite in organizations like Life Connections of the Carolinas, who literally keeps kids out of jail. Like kids are sent to them by the juvenile justice. I mean, thank them, like they do the hard work. Kids that are sent by the juvenile justice system as their last chance, right? And we already know that there's a school to prison pipeline in Charlotte, and this is a way to break that cycle for both the parents and the kids, right? I tell them they have like the sexiest nonprofit story, because like to a conservative, you're like counseling the whole family and keeping families together, and to the liberal, you're keeping kids out of jail and like helping them find their way forward. I was like, this is something that everybody can agree on, and that fit our mission, right? Because Jesus said, you know, you visited me in prison, and we're like, how do we keep people from going to prison so that we don't have to visit them in prison? And you know, I met Glenn and I met Robert and all those guys, and I was like, all right, cool, like you're keeping kids out of prison, that fits our mission. And then we house a group called the Watchmen of the Streets, who, rather than just...
Sounds like an Avenger squad.
Right? Yeah, and their like logo looks like a Waffle House sign, which is funny. But instead of just going out to homeless communities and saying like, hey, we're here to just throw some food and some different goods at you, they create relationships. So they meet here, and we go out and we walk through the camps, and we bring tents and water and sleeping bags and things that people need to survive while they're living on the street. But more than that, create relationships with people so that a homeless person doesn't feel like they're not allowed to be here. And that's been really cool for our church, because, you know, our founding pastor always said, you should have church where there's a lawyer sitting next to a homeless person, and we have that. Like, I was able to celebrate Easter with 8 of our friends that live in tents. Like, and it's amazing to have that sort of thing going on in a place that is this hub of gentrification and more just wealth unto wealth unto wealth.
What do you think is going to happen in the next 5 years here?
So Optimus Park in the next 5 years is going to be expensive, right? And probably in the next like year and a half to 2 years, it's going to be expensive. I mean, we saw that with the tax valuations. We see that with homeless folks being run out of their campsites, and
You maybe hope to find the wealthy people in this place,
yeah, I mean, like that's
talking to them about some things that they need to hear? Or?
Yeah, I think that's one of the biggest. It's one of the biggest problems that a lot of pastors who get into social justice run into is they start to deify, like they start to like worship the poor and then like villainize the rich, right? And Jesus, I don't think did that. Jesus will call out what's holding people back from being a part of his kingdom. But Jesus also walks with them in that relationship, right? He doesn't like go and start yelling at Zacchaeus about like what he's doing wrong. He goes and he fellowships with him. And so my hope would be is that Mission Gathering Charlotte would be a place where we can organize and where we can not collect, but gather people unto ourselves who maybe have resources that come into the neighborhood. They don't know what's going on here. They've never heard of Optimus Park. They're from California. They're from Pennsylvania, right? They got a good job at the bank, and they just want to live a cool life, right? And a good life. And say, you know what? There's a lot of problems in Charlotte, and there's a lot of ways that we can be the solution. And I think that the church is where that should be happening, right? Like the church is where new and life-giving things should be happening. And, you know, if I got to wear like some old Sambas with grass stains on them, then so be it, right? But we're going to try and be, we're going to try and stay with our mission, and even if the neighborhood around us changes and that need in that neighborhood changes, stay on mission to say that like we are here to feed the poor, we are here to clothe the naked, to visit those in prison, and really live into Matthew's gospel. Because, you know, that's the thing is if we don't reach across and say like, hey, like you have resources to help and you have a heart that's looking for some place to get involved, if we don't do that, then like, what's the point, right? Like,
I say like perception is reality. That's what I say. Like for a kid that doesn't have to see someone with like $6,000 Yeezys and to constantly repeat this trend every week when he comes in this space.
yeah.
That's what I'm trying to say. Hey, you know, look at that. The kid's perception is becoming his reality.
Right.
Like what he can attain, how he can attain that, but he can't.
Right.
That's
Yeah.
different for him.
Well, yeah, and then he ends up blaming it on God when he can't.
Yeah.
Right? Because the pastor's like, look at what God's given me. And I'm like, you know, look at what like a lot of people giving you money gave you. Like, because, yeah, your Yeezys didn't come from Jesus. Like, and I think that's hard too, is when you break out of an economic system of poverty, I think the classic reaction in America is to say like, well, I've got mine and I need to keep it. When the reality is that like sometimes you getting yours is because you're taking it out of the mouth of somebody else. And you know, this Christian life has never been personal. It's never been about self-reliance. It's always been a communal thing. And I'm not supposed to look at you or anyone else as being outside of my own body, right? Because I am the body of Christ. We are one thing. And so if you're suffering, then I'm suffering. And not only are you and I suffering, but Jesus is suffering. And just coming out of Easter, I mean, I don't want to make Jesus suffer, right? Like nobody wants to do that. You know, maybe Mel Gibson, you know, but just kidding. Like, but
I definitely want to see you win. You know, it's not that I don't want to see you in that stuff. I want to see you have a lifestyle that's great, and also be able to trickle it down.
yeah.
Build a sacred economy while you do that, so your name is always
Well, and,
attached to this right.
and that's the thing is that like, I think when people start to wake up a little bit more and see what's kind of going on. I mean, our generation, man, like,
How old are you?
I'm, I always forget, because once you get 30, I'm like the oldest millennial.
So I'm a millennial too.
Yeah,
28.
yeah.
Righteous.
So, like,
We love all the generations.
yeah, I mean, I'm just breaking all the molds. I mean, I bought a house recently, you know, like
Kudos.
I probably am killing the diamond industry, but, you know, we get blamed for everything. But I think our generation has new priorities, and, you know, we came into, like, a pretty, like, terrible economy as adults, right? Like, I remember graduating college and people being like, when I entered college, being like, oh, you can just get a job. Like, you have a college degree. I was like, that wasn't the truth. I became a butcher for like, you know, yeah, and it's just,
weird things.
or like parents that are like, oh, well, when I was your age, I only made $10,000 a year. And I'm like, yeah.
It's called inflation.
Yeah.
It's called, you know.
Like, and you know, just in the housing part, you know, housing cost in the 1980s 60% less than it costs now. That's just rent. That's not like home prices that adjust with inflation. That's like rental prices. That means people that own apartments are making 60% more than they did back then, even when adjusted for inflation.
A lot of us got wrecked in 2008 with like these variable loans that were just selling. And,
yeah, and then you go back to renting, and renting isn't controlled in a way that helps anybody rise out of that poverty. I mean, the city of Charlotte considers $1,500 a month affordable housing, all the way from $1,500 a month to a cot in an overflow section of a homeless shelter is considered affordable housing. And I get why people are mad when they see, you know, pastors down the road buying Maseratis for their wife and wearing all these Yeezys that they say somebody donated to them. And I don't want to be Judas. Like, I don't want to be like, oh, that could have been sold for the poor, but like, they also ain't Jesus, right? Like, so, you know, I shouldn't be anointing the pastor with like expensive oil, right? Like, I'm supposed to give that stuff to Jesus.
Who's on fire.
Yeah, like, yeah, man.
So going forward, what do you want people to know about this place, and how can we like partner up to you doing it?
Yeah,
so like you're doing it.
So I mean, you know, what I want people to know about Mission Gathering is like everyone's welcome here. Everyone may not like here, right? Like, that happens. Like, churches can be open to everyone and not for everyone. If you're at somewhere that you really like, awesome. But if you're at somewhere where, you know, you want to be at a church where a lawyer can sit next to a homeless person, where your LGBTQ family and friends or yourself are fully valued and appreciated, where we actively confront racism and try to do the work to make our largely white community aware of how we play into white supremacy and systemic oppression.
This is unreal. That's beautiful.
It's just, you know, and it's beyond that too. It's you know, this is a place where everybody feels welcome, and we you know, for a long time we said welcome home was like our big thing. We would say all the time. People would be like, because people would walk through the doors and they'd say like, I feel like I'm at home here, and I'm like, yeah, like, we're trying to do church, being conscious of where we live and what time we live in. So it's not your old boring, you know, church, if that's not what you're into. I mean, if you're into like, you know, bells and like all those things, like, cool, like, awesome. But we picked a church building because we wanted to have church, because we believe that for 2,000 years, one of the best forces for good has been the church. The sad part is also one of the biggest forces for bad has been the church at times. But we want to be a part of that group that can say, like, we're really trying to do good in the community. So if you care about your community, if you want to be a part of a community that'll care for you as well, I mean, come and see. Like, a Sunday morning doesn't take a lot of time. And
what time service starts?
So we do coffee and breakfast stuff at 10, and then we do service at 10:30.
Come check it out, yo.
Yeah.
My brother, thank you for being on the show.
Thanks, brother.
I appreciate it.
Yeah. This is Andrew Shipley from Mission Gathering, Charlotte. Make sure you subscribe to YungContent, and we'll see you soon.
So in conclusion, does God need money? No. People need money, and they use a system to do just that, to get it. Make sure you guys hit the notification bell. What do you guys think about this whole topic? Pastors wearing fear of God shoes and expensive gear. I would love to hear your thoughts in the comment section below. Make sure you hit the notification bell. And most importantly, live the dream, eat ice cream. It's your boy YungContent. We bring you the content that makes sense. Until next time, to the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Peace.
Little perp, bless your trap. If I ain't blessing, then I'm kicking in that trap, yo.